Hi, friends. Welcome back to the Life with Loverly podcast. Today's guest is such a fun one. I'm sitting down with Julia Carney, the owner of Julia Rose Boston luxury brand. Julia's luxury brand is a space to shop for curated and authentic designer accessories that are a mix of pre-loved and new items. I personally shop with her and have received some of my favorite pieces from her site and Instagram. She has such an interesting story from leaving her 9-to-5, her why behind her brand, and her very relatable journey with body image that we all experience. In today's episode, we chat about our mutual love for handbags, her go-to for girls' night, and her suggestions of the best investment pieces. We laughed so much during this episode, and I can't wait for you to tune in. Here's my conversation with Julia. Hi, friends. Welcome back to today's podcast. I am so excited to have Julia Rose Boston on the podcast. Hi, Julia. How are you?
Hi, I'm great. How are you?
I'm so good. I am so excited. I really just want to come and raid your closet and touch all the bags and things.
I love to do that. That is my favorite pastime.
Gosh, I don't even know how you don't wear all the bags all the time.
It's a struggle. It's a daily struggle. But I'm really fortunate to get to work with pieces that inspire you, and you surround yourself with pieces that,
Yes.
just get you excited about expressing who you are and expressing your creativity. And, I've always loved fashion and design. And so it's a remarkable thing to be able to go into work and just see things that really get you going.
Yeah. Well, I was telling our producer before we hopped on this call that my first purchase from you was a pink Louis Vuitton.
I
And
remember the Mahina leather.
yes.
They're so good.
I have
So
it
good.
still, it's up on one of my shelves. I pulled it out the other day and the
Oh my
girls in
gosh.
my office were like, wait a second, where have you been hiding that? And I was like, it's
It's
so
such
good.
an underrated leather.
It
It's
is.
so good because it's lightweight and it's really refined, but it's still quite durable, and you can find it for a good price.
Yeah.
I love that leather. It's one of my favorite from LV.
I have it in a little wallet in a gray, and I really need more of that in gray just because
Yeah.
I feel like that fits. But
Yeah.
since then, I have become a very big supporter, and Chris is he'll see me looking, scrolling your website at night, and he's
Oh my
like,
God, love you.
get off. What are you looking at? You don't need any of that right now. And I'm like, I am building a cart that I can just dream about, okay?
He is so lovely too. When he surprised you with that Birkin, oh
Yeah.
my gosh. And he worked so hard to find the exact perfect color for you, because we were going back
Yes.
between gray and I forget, there was a deeper gray, but when we settled on Beton, it was this is you in color form
Yes.
in Hermes. And it was just, he's so sweet.
I was shocked. So Chris surprised me with a Birkin when I hit 1 million followers on Instagram, and he and Michelle were working with Julia to find the perfect bag.
Months in
And
advance.
yes.
Months. He had been planning this for quite a while.
And I didn't even, I have always been somebody who saves up, and once a big milestone happens, I am a bag collector and I love designer bags. So that hitting a goal and then buying something is something I've always done. But for some reason I was kind of oh, 1 million followers is amazing, but I don't know, there were some other things I was saving up for and thought maybe later in the year, or I don't know, is that worth something?
Yeah.
And so when he brought that out, I was like, ooh. And saw the orange, I was like, I'm sorry. What?
But
And
not
so
only did he get you an Hermes, he got you an incredible one.
it was.
It's
I mean,
so
I
good.
love that. It is
Yeah.
the memories. I just love carrying it. I'm like, oh, all the
So good.
the joys come back. Okay, so for those of our listeners who are like, what are you guys talking about? Give us a quick overview and tell us the concept of your business for those who might not be familiar with you yet.
Sure. So I'm Julia, and I have a business called Julia Rose Boston or Julia Rose Luxury online. And we sell pre-owned, authentic, curated designer accessories. So that includes handbags. We sell some shoes and some jewelry. And we are on Instagram and online. And we post daily as well as have a website and do live sales.
And it's addicting. So I'm sorry in advance to everybody who is about to
I
get
know.
addicted. It's so
I know.
funny. I like have a few friends that I'll like text them or forward them stories. I'm like, okay, like this is a good bag for you. Like this is a good one for
I love you.
you.
Thank you so much. It means
Ugh,
like the world. Oh my gosh. No, you've
well,
been like, honestly, your support has just been instrumental to our growth. And
oh,
I
you're so sweet.
cannot, like, I'm so grateful to you. So thank you for
Well,
everything.
I remember when I first started following you guys, you had like maybe like almost 30,000 followers.
Yeah. It was
And
like back in the day. You were an OG.
yeah. And it's been so cool to just see how many people have like followed along with you and your growth. And even like there will be times like y'all post stories and it will be like a really good batch of bags and the stuff is
Yeah.
like gone, like 5 minutes
Yeah.
gone, gone, gone,
Yeah.
which is amazing.
We're really lucky. We have a great community and we try to really put a lot of thought into what we sell and in how we present it to the buyer.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully that shows, and we're really fortunate to have a lot of wonderful like repeat customers, and we're just really grateful. We have like
Yeah.
amazing designers and amazing suppliers. So we've just been very, very fortunate. And we try not to like upcharge too much.
Yeah.
We're pretty reasonable on the margin. So
Totally.
I think that also helps stuff like because my
Go.
mentality is like get in, get out, get in, get
Yeah.
out. I'm like, what's next?
Right. Well, and
So we,
people want the bags, people want to see what, I mean, they are, especially like hot colors. Like if something comes in like a red right
yeah.
now, it's just like getting turned over immediately.
Ugh, I'm like so happy that red is having a moment because I am obsessed with red. It is phenomenal with my colorway, and I
Yes.
kid you not, I cannot sell it. So like I will try to like auction it. It will not sell. So I am so happy that red is finally having
I
its day.
know. It's funny
Yeah.
because I feel like I've been looking for a red Chanel with gold hardware. I'm not really like picky on the style,
Yeah.
but I cannot find one because they're so like they're just gone.
They're also like Chanel has missed a major commercial opportunity in doing a true red. All
I
of their reds,
know.
I feel like lean more orange or lean more raspberry.
Yeah.
And so it's very rare to find like an actual true kind of like not a super blue undertone, but a neutral
Yeah.
undertone base red with gold hardware. It just like doesn't exist. The
No.
closest they have are like Three Seasons that did it with silver hardware. And a lot of people want gold. So
Right.
we've seen some that like come close, but it's like they only exist in the vintage form or like maybe one season, like maybe 20B comes pretty close, but
Yeah.
again, it skews a little poppy orange. I
Right.
don't like everyone wants a really like perfect true lipstick red, and it's actually very hard to find with gold hardware from them.
What about, do you think, I mean, and you might have a little insight on this. And I know Chanel does have a clear, like stadium style flat bag, but like, do we think we're going to see some of these designers start carrying more of like a clear option for those of us who are wanting to carry like our designer bag, but it has to be clear?
I think I think it'll be more in line with like what their goal is for that season. So whether
Yeah.
it's like a cruise collection, whether like the vibe that they're going for, and so I think we'll see some of the PVC because PVC has always like dipped in and out of
Yeah.
the trend, and so I think that's where we'll see it, not necessarily meeting like the consumer demand for a clear bag because I agree, like we all need them.
I
I still
know.
don't have one. I
Feels like
need one.
another missed mark, but it also is like, I don't know, some people may be not wanting to invest in that like large of a purchase for
Yeah.
something they're going to use so seldomly, but I don't
I don't
know.
think they think about that when they're like making
Oh,
bags.
for
I
sure
think
no.
like like practicality, I don't think is like enters the thought process necessarily when they're deciding if yeah. I mean,
That's so
they
true.
priced a MIDI acrylic guitar for 23,000 that doesn't even hold a credit card. So like again, I don't even think, yeah, like, but I mean, I love the brand. So
Totally. No, absolutely. Okay, so take us back a little bit when you first started your business. What were you doing? Where were you living? And what spurred this idea in the first place?
So I had like a totally different life pre handbag. So in my 20s, I was working in public health and development and
Okay.
in research and health policy. So I was at Mass General Hospital in Boston, and I graduated from college, and I was the research assistant to the team that developed the mental health policy for Liberia, which is a post-war country in West Africa, and it was after 20 years of civil conflict. So
Wow.
they had like nothing. So I was
Yeah.
working for a number of years in those type of environments. And I was a little burnt out, in all honesty,
Yeah.
after a number of years. And I decided to go to grad school in London because I was unsure if I wanted to stay in public health, but I knew I needed some like letters after my name to be taken more seriously at the
Hmm.
tables that I was sitting at. So I moved to London, went to grad school, was then working back in public health, but in London. So then this is like a long way. I've always loved designer stuff. Like I've always felt. Um, I think in part it was a weight issue, in all honesty, where, when I was younger, I've always loved designer. I've always loved clothes and accessories, especially like my grandmother was like a big fashionista, and she would just like take me to Bloomingdale's, and that is where I wanted to live.
Love
And I
it.
was always like decked in like ridiculous dresses and outfits. But I would say like the designer stuff really made me feel fulfilled. And I think part of that was because I was like uncomfortable in my skin, in all honesty, which like kind of feels not great to admit, but at the same time, it's like was my reality. So
Yeah.
I felt very worthy if I was like in something fabulous, like in a pair of like Missoni flats, or like I had, like a Poochie skirt. And I was like, okay, I might not feel or look my best, but like I feel valuable because of that, which like I have mixed feelings about now, of course. But at the time, like I think that's what really like catapulted, my interest in
Yeah.
fashion and design. And so, um, after Brexit, which was when the UK separated from the European Union, their currency dramatically fell. And I was living in London after having gone to grad school there. And like, I was like, oh my gosh, this stuff is so cheap. And so like I bought like a Neverfull for like $400. I was like, I know. It was so good. It like they quickly caught up price wise because I think they had
Right.
like 5 price increases in like a span of 7 months just to catch up because their currency dipped like 23% or 26% overnight. So I was like, oh my God. And it
Yeah.
was yeah, no. So I was like, wow, okay, great. I can fulfill my own fantasies of like a full designer wardrobe, which,
Yeah.
I've always like dipped in. Like I was one of those, like I would make my mother take me to like the Saks Thanksgiving sale. When I was in high school, like even one year I rolled into it in a wheelchair when I had like broken my ankle. I was like, we are going, so I
This
was
will not
always,
stop me.
this will not stop me. Like I am getting, because like at the time you could get like Chanel ballet flats for like $100 at the Thanksgiving
Oh
sales.
my
So
gosh.
I would, oh my God, I still have them too, which is so
That's
great.
amazing.
Yeah, no, you could get them. Like you get such good stuff. It was wild. I swear, like Saks and Bloomingdale's back in the day would just give away their stuff around Thanksgiving. So I would like not miss a beat. My mother was like, "Are you insane?" Because I was like 18 and like running
And look
around.
at you now.
I know. Look at me now. But anyway, um so I was starting to do some essentially like arbitrage, like because the currency was so favorable, and I was working in an industry that I was like, yeah, I'm gonna need a little more money than this.
Yeah.
And so I started the business, and it was at the time of the start of the buy sell Facebook groups, which were just like an
Yes.
incredibly unique marketplace that a lot of people went there both because they liked the designer stuff, but also for feelings of like friendship and camaraderie. And I just thought it was like behaviorally a very interesting scape. And the pressures were very different than in like a normal individualized marketplace. So I
Yeah.
decided, I was like, okay, I'm going to sell in these groups. And I also, just from my own experience, noticed that there was like this giant gap in the market of, pluses. Now it's changed a lot, but at the time that I started, there was zero representation of like curve or plus or anything that wasn't like a very thin
Yeah.
representation of luxury. And I was like, for someone with curves, I was like, I'm spending all of this money. I want to know if the bag is going to like fit over my bust.
Right.
How is it going to sit? Does it proportionally look okay? And that for me was a need that I saw completely unmet in the market. So I was like, okay, this is something that I personally can relate to and I'm very passionate about myself. And then also there is like this unmet need. And so that was kind of how it started. And I focused on handbags and accessories. I mean, I love clothes. And as you know, we've started to do more clothes because I'm like very passionate about clothes and shoes.
Yep.
Personally, but they are very, it's much easier because they're sizeless.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
generally you can wear stuff. So I started we were like one of the early groups. I don't think other people, we were like one of the first groups on Instagram. So I pivoted to Instagram
Yep.
after the Facebook buy sell groups because after a year or so, I realized they were like quite restrictive. And it was very difficult to grow a business in such a
Right.
constricted environment. So we went to Instagram and yeah, I started posting videos of like bags on my shape, and
Yeah.
it really resonated with I think a lot of people because they hadn't necessarily seen all of these styles on a different type of body.
I
So
remember watching your stories and you would try them on and you also like you showed them on your body, but you also like showed people how to wear them. Like you can put the chain this way. You can also carry it like double
yeah,
strapped. And sometimes people don't know. And if they're not able to like go into a boutique or
yeah,
find the item, they don't get to see anybody actually showing how it works. And you did
yeah.
that.
Yeah, I also thank you. No, we wanted to because like I
Yeah.
remember buying a medium classic and being like, wait, this doesn't like fit around
Yeah.
me. I was
You're like,
like, okay,
hold on.
I spent like $4,000
Yeah.
on this, because back in the day, I mean, now it'd be like 11.
Yeah.
But I was like, wait, what? It doesn't look like on the photos on the internet. So it was very useful for my own. And then the other thing that I was, I had a bunch of because obviously I've loved designer bags and designer accessories since I was a child. But I had some that I tried to sell and I had like really bad experiences. I had brought them to like some local consignment places, and when I got them back, they were like battered and had lots of wear. And I was like, I need to like be able to find a place where they don't touch it, where no one.
Right.
I love that people get to try stuff on at stores, but I also for like my own sanity, for my own stuff, I was like, no. I don't want this stuff
Yeah.
like grabbed and touched, and because if it didn't sell, like as what happened to me, I ended up having a lot of extra wear on the piece.
Yeah.
So so I was like, I'm just gonna sell this myself.
Yeah. So, do you remember the first item that you sold and who you sold it to?
I do remember the first item that I sold. I don't remember who I sold it to, but it was an Hermes her bag because I was like, oh my God, I can afford Hermes now. But it was like one of these vintage her bags. Have you tried the vintage ones?
Uh-uh.
They're kind of like I'm probably gonna again. I suffer from foot and mouth disease, so I'm sure we have some lovely ones in stock, but they are just not practical for me in any way, shape, or form, and they're kind of clunky, and they have that like Kelly Birkin look, but are a fraction of the price. So they are really good, and the newer versions, which I think you do have a newer version, the newer versions
Yeah.
are great. The newer versions I love because they're much like easier to navigate, but the vintage older styles are like I
It's
just
like,
find them
why?
completely impractical, totally clunky, awful. But I think I bought it for like 300 pounds and I sold it for 600 pounds. And I was like, whoa, okay.
Yeah.
So
I
it
mean,
was
and then did you have people who would come to you and be like, "Hey, can you get this for me?" And then it was like able to kind of snowball like that too?
kind of. I mean, it was more like suppliers then
Yeah.
start coming to you and they start finding you. And then people are like, oh, can you help us do this? And that's kind of how you grow.
Yeah.
We have kind of strayed away a little bit from the sourcing. We're doing more of it now. than we have historically. But for me, like I've always been most excited about like this is a really good bag or this is a really good value. And sometimes when you're sourcing, it's because you're on like a little bit of a time constraint, it can be hard to find that value in it. So I'm always like, let's see what's out there and then take that to market versus, I mean, we're now doing a lot more sourcing for sure. But yeah, that's kind of at the beginning. It was less like, can you find this for me? And more like, I was just my understanding of like, these were good items to have. We also, I tried to find items that were in Europe because at the time, in the buy sell groups in Facebook, there were a lot of like accessories from Japan, and then there was like US bags, but there weren't a ton of people selling in Europe or the UK, and they just had like a different there was different stock options.
Right.
And at the time there was a lot of really good stuff coming out of Italy for really good prices. So I was very fortunate to get in before that then migrated to a lot of other sellers and like a lot of bigger companies. And that kind of gave us like a little bit of a unique positioning in the market. And because I was so close to Italy, I would go quite frequently. And then that also allowed us to be like a little bit different from some of the other buy sell groups that were kind of popping up at the same time.
So do you have like any entrepreneurial people in your family? Like did your friends and family respond when you started to resell bags?
They were like very confused. My dad's response was like, I have these tires for my BMW if you'd like to sell them. And I was like, thank you. Thank you so much. I think that was like his way of like being like, I accept that you have a business, and he describes it as like, my daughter has a business on the internet. Like
I get that. My parents are kind of the same. They're like, I don't know exactly what she does, but you should follow her.
Exactly. Like my dad literally is like, she has a business on the internet. I was like, it's a little more specific.
Yeah.
No. So so in one way, yes, like my father has had his own law firm. So in some ways he is actually quite entrepreneurial, but in other ways he's like, I mean, he's a lawyer. Him and my brother, so he does high profile criminal defense.
Okay.
And so I grew up like surrounded by that.
Yeah.
And my brother also now does criminal defense and his wife does criminal defense. And like, I basically come from a lot of lawyers. And then my mother, she is amazing. She was like an architect of some of the pioneering public health policies and mental and behavioral health policies in Massachusetts and the US. So she was the senior vice president of like the largest and oldest teaching hospital at Harvard and the largest healthcare system in the States. So she's amazing. So they're both like badasses in their own right.
Totally.
And I think, so my path is a little like, I think they very much derive a lot of their identity through their work and through giving back in their work. And so that's like one area where I don't want this to turn into a therapy session, but like where I've struggled with somewhat is like that being able to divorce myself and my identity from solely like what I do, because so much of like their relationship and connection comes from their work. And I was like, okay, selling bags, like I feel very mission driven in that I'm like, giving great value and, representation in some ways, but also I don't want to like chalk it up to anything grander than it is. So that's I think they're proud, but I think they're also like slightly confused.
Yeah. Well, and I think, everybody finds their like joy in what they do differently. And, I mean, it's so, I look at this too. I always wanted to like help people. And, for so long I was like, oh, that must mean I have to like become a doctor or do something that like is like literally like changing somebody's life. And then you can really like work that back and be like, but actually like I am helping people in this other way, and it's very fulfilling.
Yeah, totally. But they're like incredibly supportive to the point where, like my first office was in my dad's law firm because I was like, you have an empty office. Like, can I move in there? And I mean, this is like, again, high profile criminal defense. So you have
Right.
some interesting characters coming through that office. And then you would just have us with our little bags,
Like next
just
to
like
it. You're like,
parading through.
huh.
We would be like going into a different room to like film a Chanel bag. And there would be like a very serious conversation of happening in the conference room. So a little jokes.
Right. You're like, it's just growth. You
It's gross.
started there and now you're, everybody has to start somewhere.
No, so I honestly, that was like the kindest thing that he did, was to let us like rent a space in his law firm. I was like, come on, it'll be
Seriously.
fun. And so he was like, this is ridiculous. He was like, this is not a boutique. So
You're like, fine, we'll get another space. So when did you ultimately leave your full-time job to pursue Julia Rose Boston Luxury full-time?
I think in like 2018, 2017, 2018.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just was like enjoying the entrepreneurial exercise.
Yeah.
And you know how it is. Like when you start, you work 100 hours for yourself so you don't have to work 40 hours for someone
I know.
else, kind of thing. And like, I just was enjoying that piece and the freedom that it afforded me. So I decided to just take the plunge and see if I could make it work.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. I mean, I would say, like, I've also, because I live a lot of the time in the UK, where, the work-life balance is a lot better.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more emphasis on like life outside of
Right.
work. Part of that has also, I've not been like the most focused, like growing a company, like growing the biggest business that I could. I've like really tried to lean into this, like have a good balance of my personal life and my professional
Yeah.
being. And sometimes I feel like that's harder for me to do when I'm in the States.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
They don't make it easy for us over here to have a balance, but
Hold on, that was my father. Hi, Dad. I was just talking about you and how supportive you were to the business. Yeah.
thanks. I love it.
Sorry.
Okay, so if you're going out to dinner with some of your
Yeah.
girlfriends, what bag are you personally taking? What's your go-to?
So I love a medium classic Chanel. I just think it's like a tried and true.
Yeah,
I'm really boring. I just do like black gold hardware, and
love. You
I
can't
don't
go
mind that.
wrong.
You can't go wrong. It's honestly, it's like I tell people, I am a bigger person and I can't crossbody it. It is still like one of my favorite bags. It's just very versatile. You can use it in every situation. I also do love like a big clutch. So I like love a good Bottega clutch
Mm-hmm.
or like a funky Chanel clutch. I just think like I do not need to have a strap. So I feel like a really fun clutch is a great way to like add some interest and
Yeah.
pizzazz. So that's kind of what I lean into.
I think it's always like there are so many classic pieces that you can buy, but having something with like a little bit of personality, it
Totally.
could be the accessory to your outfit, especially if you're somebody who likes to wear black or like solid
Yeah.
colors, or you're not really crazy on your outfits. Having a bag that kind of brings that personality is like a really great statement piece too.
I also will just say, like, again, I don't mean to like beat a dead horse here, but I don't always love how I look physically, um, because my weight fluctuates. And so sometimes I like hate how I look, or like I'm in like leggings and a boring top,
Yeah.
and having a great accessory just gives this sense of confidence that really helps me to like feel
Yeah.
good about myself, which again, I have a love-hate relationship with, but it's true.
Yeah, that's the reality, and that's very relatable. I mean, some
Yeah.
people are like, I know this is like, I don't jump out of like my comfort zone in clothes, but bringing in
Yeah.
that like piece that's going to lift my confidence that's very true.
Yeah. Like my uniform is like Lululemon leggings, like black leggings, a black top, like an Hermes shawl, that like one
Yes.
of the big ones that I just like throw over, or just like a poncho, or like some cashmere wrap, and then like a great accessory. And that is just like, I feel good. I can focus on what I need to focus on without being like I don't this is not fitting
Right.
right, or XYZ. So
Well, and that's like, I think about your lives and I think about like your story try-ons where you're showing bags and like that is literally like you make the bags look good with
Oh my
just
God, thank
the
you.
palette of, you know, like
I
a
know.
soft, palette. So I think
Yeah.
I love it.
I would say, like, I'm not necessarily, like, a super fashion person, but, like, I love finding things that work for a realistic
Yeah.
person. And then we have some people, like, we do a lot of really beautiful content, I think,
Yes.
where it is more, like, fashion forward and
Hmm.
some of our, yeah.
Yeah.
But
One
anyway,
of my friends, Paula, she used to like do a lot of photos for you
and I
guys.
love her. She's
I
amazing.
know. She's
She is, like,
literally so great.
she has the best taste, like, on earth, honestly. Like, I'm so
Literally.
bummed. She's still doing her interiors.
I'm not sure. I know she lives in DC now. I'm not sure what all she's doing. I know she works with a friend of mine works with her and I just love following along with her adventures and her daughter
Yeah.
Sterling is about the same age as my oldest daughter and it's just yeah, she's just a great person. Uh,
Yeah, she's great. No, we got really lucky, that we had her modeling,
Yeah.
um, for sure. We had some other people model too that ended up, like, blowing up. Like, this one woman on TikTok, she's, like, a big nutritionist now.
Oh wow.
Um, and so, like, but she, like, modeled for us back in the day, and, who else? Yeah, we just have some, like, some of those stories, which I really
Yeah.
love.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so in your opinion, tell our followers aside from the Chanel medium classic bag, what would be
Yeah.
another great bag to invest in for the long term?
So I think there's two kind of ways of thinking about this because one, investment for your own self. Like for me, I personally find joy in the funkier, unique pieces. So I still have some pieces from 15 years ago, 20 years ago. Like I still have my Goyard clutch
Mhm.
that I wear to this day that I got in college. And so for me, that was a good investment.
Right.
Will I get a good return on it? Perhaps not, but will like my use
Its
per
cost
wear,
per wear is
its cost per wear is
yeah.
phenomenal. And now I think they retail like 2,500. I think I paid like 17 or something.
Yeah.
Again, not the best like investment, but for me, so I think one is thinking about like, are you a creature of habit? Like I am someone who keeps my stuff, who likes what I like. It's like my style has not changed since high school. So if I want to buy a bag that I'm like, I love this, it's a good investment for me personally because I know I'm going to get a lot of use out of it. If you're
Yeah.
someone who likes to change it up a lot, then like I think looking more at like what is a good investment market wise is perhaps a better strategy. So, the things that are the best investments tend to be neutral colors. So, beiges and creams and blacks and grays. Um, and gold hardware is generally preferred. I would say like the more popular leathers, smaller bags, mainly because the Asian market drives a lot of the luxury pricing, and that is what is preferred in the Asian market. So the smaller bags tend to hold value better than some of the larger pieces. But just going with like what is the most like widely appealing and widely neutral. Less so like I think some people are like, oh, it's a one of a kind, it's unique, and that doesn't necessarily improve the value. It can actually
Right.
hurt it because you want it to be um, as most, the most number of people who will want to purchase it.
Totally. Okay, so what's going on with Chanel purse pricing? I feel like they're constantly like doubling and increasing at a rapid pace.
They're insane.
I mean, I guess that like the the demand is so high, so they can keep doing that, and people are just continuing to purchase.
I would say yes and no. Like we've noticed, I mean, even you as a buyer, I think like we've noticed, I mean, you're an example. I don't know if like I can disclose, but like you've
Sure.
migrated a bit from
Right.
Chanel to Hermes. I think part of that is, both like evolution as a handbag collector, but also partially because the value isn't necessarily there at like the top end for
Right.
Chanel. And so you're like, well, if I'm going to be spending this, I might as well just go to Hermes.
Yeah.
And so I think in some way you are seeing that people still buy, but in other ways they've lost a lot of customers because of their aggressive pricing. Their strategy, I mean, I think part of it is that they want to get rid of the infrequent, like one time, more casual buyer, and they're putting all their eggs in people who buy frequently and across categories in the brand. And so they're making it like this more exclusive club of people who
Mm-hmm.
can purchase. So you're seeing like quotas and really aggressive price points. Um, and that's unfortunate, I think, for a lot of people who, a lot of aspirational buyers, but
Yeah.
it's what, the brand wants for
Yeah.
their customer base. You're also seeing, I mean, the classics one, if you go to the stores now, though, you'll be able to find bags. Historically, like during COVID and before COVID, when you would go to the stores, you couldn't find
Anything.
classics. You
Right.
can now find bags at Chanel. So I do think they so people are buying, but they're not buying in the same way that they used to. And their love for the brand has diminished. I mean, it's such a fun brand and it's so
Mm-hmm.
whimsical. And unfortunately, their collections are just so great that, like, I don't think people won't ever not buy, but
Right.
the enthusiasm for them has definitely died down as people feel they're a bit getting scammed, and that the prices have increased, the quality has maybe not so much increased, or the value that's
Right.
the weird thing is also that, like, the secondhand market, the value of classics has actually decreased in the last few years. Um, so that's been an interesting kind of outcome of some of their
Yeah.
aggressive price hikes. You would think it would be the opposite, but it actually has caused, I mean, we were selling classics for like $2,000 more, $3,000 more a couple years ago than we are now.
Yeah.
One other really interesting, like, offshoot of their aggressive price hikes is that I think you're seeing a lot more like a renaissance of the seasonal styles, and people being like, okay, wanting to play around with different styles. In the past, historically, because classics held their value so well, you almost felt pressured to like buy the classic in that seasonal color because you're like, it's a one-off color, it's not going to come back. This is the best investment. This was the best return. So you didn't see that love affair with some of these really funky and interesting and unique seasonal styles that you are now. So
Right.
right now we're seeing actually like the value of some of the seasonal pieces are commanding more than retail on the secondary market, whereas like the classic flops have actually come down considerably.
It's so
So
interesting. Just like all the
yeah,
way, like the behind the scenes of
yeah.
the whole industry.
Yeah, and like we used to try to pick out. I think it also became a little oversaturated with this idea of like the unicorn.
Mm-hmm.
So these bags that were like, okay, they're going to shoot up in value, everyone's going to want it, and then kind of every season was like, what's the unicorn? And that just then you had like too many unicorns.
Right.
So people kind of were like, ugh. It's all replaceable. And you've also had this like incredible interest in vintage that
Yeah.
has come about in the last few years. And so that's also, I think, dramatically changed people's purchasing habits with, new from the boutique. So I'm like really curious to see how they navigate forward.
Yeah. I personally like love shopping some more of a like vintage pieces or something that's like been pre-owned, or maybe it's just a little bit like it's just a little bit more unique. It's not like
Yeah.
brand new. Um
Yeah. Well, you were in
and
Japan. Wasn't it like amazing to see all the stuff
yes.
there?
And it was also crazy, like in the boutiques, it just like people were just kind of like grabbing like what they
Oh my God.
could. And I'm like, wow, just taking it in. I went to a few like secondhand or reseller Hermes stores, and it was even just like fascinating to see what they had and their prices
Yeah.
and things like that. Um, but yeah, I mean they're definitely a little ahead of the game over there.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. But no, some of the vintage pieces are incredible and really well made and
Yeah.
just like interesting, and you just feel like you can also wear it with ease.
Yeah. I know. It's like you don't sometimes like a brand new bag feels like I have to really take care of this and like what if
Yeah,
something happens to it? And a vintage is a little bit more like it's already been lived in, like let's keep living in it. So I also do appreciate that approach to
for
having a new
sure.
handbag too, a new to me handbag.
Yeah, no, we're seeing I was not I liked vintage stuff, but I was not like a vintage girly, I would say. And then I went to Japan and I know that's like so classic, but like now I'm like obsessed with vintage.
Hey, you've been
Um,
swayed.
I just was so, I mean, like, I would see these pieces that were 20, 30 years old, and just the condition that they were still in, I was like,
Yeah.
wow.
Well,
And
they
it was
also
like,
take care of their things over there
oh,
a
yeah.
lot better
Oh, yeah.
than
Oh, for sure. Like, for sure. I mean, my stuff that I've worn twice is in worse shape than like their stuff that's like 30 years old.
they're just
So,
like very
yeah,
meticulous, which I
so
appreciate.
meticulous. So meticulous. And they also don't have space. So they don't have the same amount of space. So there's a higher turnover
Hmm.
um, of product and less time that it like sits being used. Because if you want to get a new bag, generally you just don't have the space to
Right.
have these like giant collections. So there's a much quicker turnover, I would say, in some of these areas. But yeah, no, I was like very inspired by like the box leather pieces.
Hmm.
It was so shiny and delicious. And this is like a fragile leather, but like the condition of the leather after 30 years, 20 years was absolutely remarkable that I was
Yeah.
like, okay, these are actually like quite solid pieces,
Right.
despite superficially being a bit easy to scratch. So I
Right.
don't know. I just found it like very inspiring there. So now I'm like obsessed with vintage. I mean, some vintage I think is overrated and
Right.
overpriced. And some people like, again, I'm very much what is the value of it? Like, what is the actual value, and
Yeah.
not just like glamorizing, like, oh, it's from Japan, it's vintage, it's
Right.
yeah,
Well, and I think people who are on the other side who are like making these purchases, it's nice to have you as a kind of like beacon who is going to do all of that research and present all of that to them first so they know they're coming to a reliable source. I think that's one thing that's so like great about shopping with you is like you're trustworthy. There is reliability, and we know what we're getting. You've
yeah.
put your stamp of approval on it.
Thank you so much. I mean, I'm very like you know me at this point, so I'm like a straight shooter.
Yeah.
So I will tell you if it's overpriced, but like it has to be overpriced because there's none on the market, or like it's
Right.
overpriced because but comparatively to the other overpriced pieces, it's actually like a well-priced overpriced piece.
Right.
So we're very just like honest and straightforward about what you're getting value-wise, and like that is still at the end of the day, like what gets me excited is like finding great value and
Mhm.
then like finding great value for people.
Yeah.
And whether that's again like a high price but amazing shape, a great color, a unique piece, a well priced piece. So I think that's really what people relate to.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. What would you say is your favorite part about this business?
Oh gosh. So I really like the people that I meet. So I meet some really interesting characters,
Yeah.
and like our community is amazing, and they're just like really positive and empowering and thoughtful and kind. And so I'm just like really fortunate to be surrounded by those type of personalities. I really like the merch. I still get super excited. Like put me in a room with new merch and like
Gosh.
yeah, I'll be occupied for the next few days. Like
Yeah.
I get really excited about it. And yeah, that still love that. Um I love that it's changing so much, that like sustainability and pre-owned has come like so far from
Yeah.
when I started, and like I think that's really interesting to see. I like that it was at the earlier stages that I was starting. And so I like to see the iteration of where the industry is kind of headed. It's now a
Right.
little saturated, but it's been a wild ride. And then I love like the people I work with. Like I'm sure you have a similar thing where
Yeah.
it's like to pick who you work with, which is a incredible
Yeah.
luxury.
It's so true. So true. Um, do you have any advice you would give others who are maybe starting their entrepreneurial journey in the brand or fashion industry?
I would say just like be authentic and be yourself and really know your voice and be confident that like that voice should be heard. I think that's what resonates with people the most is just to be authentically you.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, and I always think of whenever people kind of ask about starting a business or wanting to get going or like asking advice, I'm like, well, you must have something in your inside that is like pulling you to share what you
Yeah.
want to share or do what you want to do. Like
Yeah.
you just have to like do that, go forward with
Yeah.
that, be confident, like what you just said, and that really will make all the difference.
Yeah. And I think it's like, it can be intimidating because like
Yeah,
like as I said, like I'm not a super like fashion person. Like I get my excitement from like finding good value, and then mix I get excited by people who are like very fashion forward, and so
yeah,
like I love surrounding myself with people who are have that kind of eye. But like it took me a little while to be okay with that. Like I'm not going to be that like size two under trend setting kind of figurehead. And so you just to be honest with like what you bring to the table
yeah.
and who you are is I think the most important.
Okay, how awesome is it to go into a client's house? Or like how does this work exactly? When cuz I see you do these like this client has like all of these bags that they're selling or shoes and you just are like in there like living your truth. What is that experience like and how, I mean, anytime you go in and you're like, okay, all of this stuff we're going through right now and I'm like, what is that even like?
Oh my god, it's insane. Like some people just have incredible collections and it's like
Yeah.
such an honor to like even be considered to sell them. So people and it's like a lot of the people the people whose houses I have gone to are very like thoughtful collectors too, and
Yeah.
I learned so much from them because they've really spent the time understanding what they're after, knowing why they're after it, the history of the piece, the history of the collection, the inspiration. And so they come also armed with like just this incredible knowledge
Yeah.
and the story of the hunt. I think a lot of people just,
Mhm.
love the bag, but also love the hunt for the very specific, very elusive piece, especially
Right.
when it's like a couple seasons old, because it can be hard to find in like a very specific colorway. But yeah, I mean, we work with really lovely people. So I don't do a ton of those. Those are like very few and far
Yeah.
between, but the few, I mean, they're like these houses are on another planet.
Right.
Um, so it's like,
You're
yeah,
just getting like this
I'm
entire
like,
experience.
yeah, it's like wild.
It
So,
seems really cool.
yeah, some of like one client's closet is just, I mean, it's nicer than like any boutique I've ever visited. I mean, she's just has like the most amazing stuff.
Yeah.
So, but no, they're really like lovely, normal people. And a lot of them actually like work alongside me. Like they like
Yeah.
to put in the work with it. So, we have one client who absolutely financially does not need to be assisting in any way, but she's like, we call her our runner when we go because she will just like
Love that.
like she's in the weeds with us. And so they I think get a lot of satisfaction also about
Yeah.
the whole process of like rehoming it to someone who's passionate about the product and who loves the piece and who wants to understand the piece, both in like the context of the house and the context of history. And
Mhm.
yeah, so we're very fortunate to both work with like great sellers and then have great buyers who are equally as like excited about the pieces.
Yeah. I always think about the stories of the bags. Like, what was the life this bag lived with its like owner before? Like, where did they go to dinner?
Yeah.
Where did this bag, like, if you could just be like a fly on the wall in this like bag's past life. I had a friend a few years ago. We went to Fashion Week together and she was saying, I just wish there was a way to like every time you like got a maybe you like borrowed a bag from somewhere or you bought a pre-owned bag, it could like have a little card that would like tell its story of like where it's been. And I
I
always
love
think
that.
about that though. Like, where are the fun places this bag has been before me?
I love that. That's like a lot of people, I think, get attached to pieces because of that nostalgia.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's like lovely to have that relationship with the piece and to like continue it on to like
Yeah.
different
I always
lives.
think about my bags. Sometimes, like, there was a point where I would go on a trip and I would like buy a bag from that trip. And so then,
I love that you do that. I feel like you've started doing that on most of
yeah,
your
I
trips, and I think
have.
it's so smart. I think it's so smart.
Although I feel like it later, if I ever were to like want to get rid of any of them, I'd be like, oh, I can't. Like, that was from Japan. Like, nope. Oh, that was from Paris. Nope. Like, but that is like kind of just the
Yeah.
bag of the trip. But I think
Yeah.
that's like part of just my whole process when I travel, like looking for something specific and unique. Um, but that's just like a fun way to attach a memory with a bag.
I loved the bag that you got from us for Paris, by the way. That's like
Oh
one
my
of like
gosh.
the best. Like it's so good and
I
so,
know.
and it like the pearl strap is the chef's kiss,
Yes.
and yes,
Well, so
and
you
it's
can
like
like remove it.
reasonable for pearl.
Yes. So you can take it off and like I made a like into a belt at
Wait,
one
that's
point,
amazing. That's
and
so good.
but then you can put it back on or like put it on other accessories. I loved that bag. When I saw it earlier this summer, I literally was like, this is what I'm building my outfits around for Paris. And literally
It's
like
so good.
built what I was going to wear around that. And it was so good.
It was so good. It was like the perfect like French stripe, and
Yes,
it was, yeah, I like love, and it's such a wearable like material.
exactly.
People like don't give some of the fabrics
Hmm.
the shot that they deserve.
I agree.
Like you can find some incredible jersey and tweed and canvas, and
Yeah,
like some of my favorite bags are these unique materials that do not cost the same as like a crazy leather bag,
right.
but have just as much versatility and utility.
I think the like tweed options are something people should really consider for like around holiday or really spicing up. Again, you can like rewear a dress that you've had in your closet for several years and bringing out this
Yeah.
statement that is a great material will just change your outfit and really elevate it for seasons to come. Okay, I just have one more question and then we'll wrap it up because this has been almost an hour, which is
Oh my
amazing.
god. Oh my god.
I
I hope it's
know.
been okay.
Oh, yes,
Ah!
it's been so great. Okay, I have one more question just to kind of wrap up. And I ask all of my podcast guests this question, and it's always so fun to hear what their responses are. But what is an act of kindness someone has extended to you that has made a lasting impact on your life?
So I was trying to think about this more in the context of the business,
Uh-huh.
and I will say I think that Sarah Tripp, um,
Yes, love her.
posting us so much, like, we had, like, 1,000, 2,000 followers, and I think she just like, it was we didn't pay her. We didn't, like, I think I gifted her, like, a Twilly and, or a scarf or something, but something
Right.
so small. But the disproportionate support that she had provided was just it dramatically changed the course of like my
Yeah.
business and my life, and honestly was part of why I was able to leave my job and do this full time. And that was just like, and I've noticed that also with like, you were one of the early people who did that, like Emily
Yeah.
Gemma, so many, like, you guys just extended the kindest support with like, it was just, it dramatically changed my life. So
Yeah. I think Emily and Sarah were both how I found you originally. Um, I think it was maybe
yeah,
Sarah because I remember some of the
it was
stuff that
sick.
y'all did early on.
Yeah.
And then I remember seeing Emily buy a few things and I was like, okay, like I gotta, if Sarah's giving her stamp of approval, Emily is giving her stamp of
Yeah.
approval, like I gotta check this out.
No,
Um,
Emily's a great, like, I love both of them, and I know
yeah.
them both in real life, and they're both just like amazing,
Hmm.
kind, good people. And it's just been like, it's such a pleasure to be their friend and also to like, see what they're buying. I mean, Emily is now deep in Hermes.
Oh, yes, she is. I love it. I'm like, which bag is she bringing out today?
But so are you.
I mean, I'm not at quite at her level of deepness, but I am getting there. It's a fun collection, that's for sure.
Yeah, what are you buying next? By the way, everyone wants that clutch that you got, that like unique clutch.
I know.
It's so good.
The Chanel one, or which one?
The Chanel one, that
Yes.
like metallic-y one.
I
like,
know.
oh God, so good.
So
good.
I find like the things on your website. Like I literally will go and search and I'm like, "Ooh, this is going to be good." And they're such great prices that I'm like, "Okay, let me grab this." And then I find myself using it all the time.
That's like so great. Oh my God, thank you so much.
Literally, I'm not kidding. Chris is like, sees the white logo in the back. He's like, get off the website.
No, our website, like low key, like I find stuff on our website. I'm like, what is this? Why is this so cheap?
Okay.
I swear, like this is like a little bit of a savage in the pricing, and because she's like very much a like get in, get out, and she's like, I swear, sometimes I'm like, Alyssa, it's like not COVID mentality anymore, So
right.
she's so her pricing is like 2019 pricing, and I'm like, oh my God. But like you can find some really good prices, really good deals.
I agree. I think
I find some of my best buys.
So there was last year before Christmas, Chris got a Louis Vuitton jewelry case, and I use that all the time. Like whenever we travel.
Oh, that's so good.
I mean,
that one is so good.
There are so many good, like small leather goods. So if you're listening and you want to start getting some ideas for your significant other, be searching on Julia's website, because I've already got a little cart full of just, save this for a rainy day. You never know.
No, thank you so much. We also love working with partners, so they can always email us.
Yes.
And yeah, we love helping with gifts. We have some really generous partners, and including yours. And like holiday season's always really fun to see what people are buying. Though it's going to be interesting because it's an election year. So
I know
like
it will be weird to see what, like, just how people are spending their money and like what they're choosing to get this year. Well, Julia, this has been so much fun. Will you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Of course. So we are on Instagram at Julia Rose Boston. We have a website, www.juliaroseluxury.com. We are always available by email. We're like a small group, very few of us. So
very responsive. I will say.
Usually, I hope.
Yeah.
God, I hope.
Sometimes. Chris is always like, they're great. They're so easy to work with. So.
Okay, perfect. Yay. So we're always available and we love what we do. So we are so grateful to do this.
Yes.
Thank you. I was so nervous. God, I hope
You did great. I think our listeners are going to love it. They're going to learn a lot from this episode. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for everything. Thank you for having me. This has been such an honor.
All right, friends, until next time.